That's for prayer real quick. I think that, boy, it's carried us a long way, guys. It's carried us a real long way. So we are blessed.
Well, it feels like a little different night, doesn't it? A little different anyhow. So we just kind of gather ourselves and bring ourselves completely here into the room with a few deep breaths to kind of just relax us a little bit. And the first thing we say is, thank you, God, that we're this far. And good and gracious God, Judeo-Christian scriptures characterize you as holy wisdom. And we need you so with us tonight. Infuse us with your wise presence, that we might be able to sort through what is before us and act wisely, coming to understand what is the first step we now need to take. We know you are with us, filling our hearts with compassion for all who will be affected by these decisions concerning West Lake. For all who are affected by that poisonous gash that is West Lake. Children from the future call us. Help us to discern well both what is needful and what is possible. Please be with us, Holy Wisdom. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Jean. Come on in and take a seat. So we're going to apologize up front that we do not have an agenda, and we do not know what we're going to say here. But we wanted you all to come together and have the opportunity to process what you're hearing, and let us share what we learned today, and mix it all up and see what we come up with. First of all, though, I do want to recognize any elected officials or representatives in the room at this moment.
State Senator Jill Shute. Thank you.
Yeah!
State Representative Mark Peterson. Let me first introduce my good friend and colleague, State Representative Justin Hill.
Perfect timing.
And who are you, miss?
Oh, I'm just the one who takes the hits for everything.
We've taken plenty, too.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Any other elected officials here? Oh, sorry, Linda.
Linda Henry, I'm here for Chief Stanger, the county executive.
Okay, and then before we go any further, I know everybody is congratulating Dawn and myself, and we appreciate all that, but you guys, we couldn't do this without you, and there are a couple other people that we couldn't do this without that never get any recognition, and I want to bring them up here, and I want you guys to give them a big round of applause. Debbie Disser, Kristen Camuso, Robin Bailey, and Megan Beckerman. I am not even kidding when I tell you that they are the glue that keeps Dawn and I together. I'm not even kidding. They handled today where we could not step in. They've monitored the page. They've taken the hard questions. Kristen was amazing getting the press release out. Megan threw it all together to be here tonight. Debbie's doing her thing up there. I mean, we really depend on these ladies, and they have done an amazing job for us. So I wanted to point that out. Okay, one more thing going to have a pasta and night of praise. And the information's up here. We're going to put this flyer on the website and on the Facebook page. If you guys can attend or push it out and maybe get others to attend. We are so grateful for this church to be here last minute for us every third Thursday of the month. They have done amazing things for us, and we really want to give back. So look for this on the Facebook page, and let's give back to the church. So Dawn's going to start the conversation.
So I want to kind of just talk real quick. I know you guys run on Facebook. Hopefully you saw Facebook Live, probably on the media, but I want to give you a run through from our perspective, and I think Mark was there, Harvey was there, Matt, where's Matt Lemanchi? Did he run out? Matt was here this morning. Just kind of talk about what happened this morning when we were in the room. So we were told to be at a meeting by EPA at 7 a.m. Now, of course, we got there at 6:30. That's how we do it. And they provided coffee. So we walked in, we didn't know who from EPA was going to be there, and we had no idea who the decision was. We just knew that press were not invited. Obviously, some press had a heads up, and that's fine, but we knew nothing about it, so we walked in. Mayor Terry Briggs was there, the school district was there, all 4 congressionals were there. Who else was there? Kay Dry. Where's Kay Dry? Oh, there's Kay. Kay Dry was there. And Heather Navarro was there from MCE. Ed Smith has the flu. And who else am I missing? I think that might be it. Ron Orr from the school district. Did I say that? Anyway, so they told us, they got pretty quickly to the point that it was partial removal. And we were pretty upset. It was kind of hard to process in a room like that. And then they started talking about levels and overall radioactivity and how they had come to that conclusion. And they explained 70% to us. So we had thought that that was 70% of all RIM on site. Well, it's not. What it is it's 24% of all RIM, but RIM is radiologically impacted material. But it is 70% of the overall radioactivity on the site. Does that make sense? No. So basically it's partial in a little bit of hot spot. So what they've done is they've gotten some of the areas that are most concentrated. Our question to them, both then and now, was about the groundwater. Harvey mentioned some good questions about the fire. It was made very clear that this is a recommendation. So I want to get this clear because there's a lot of people on the page. A recommendation, we're going through a legal process right now. We are the first step. They made a recommendation. What will happen is Tuesday will mark the first day, and we will get this up on the page for you, of what is probably going to be a 40-something, 45-day public comment period. You guys will have the opportunity to write comments. They don't have to be crazy long. Do not feel like you're writing an essay. If you have the ability, that would be helpful. That's great. But don't feel like you have to do that for it to count. What we brought up about the public comments, if you were here at the previous meeting we had, we said there's a lot of paid-for opposition. Do you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Republic, the Coalition to Keep Us Safe. I know these two, and I know the senator knows. There is serious paid-for opposition. And what's happening is they are writing form letters. They are sending emails. There's a lot of going on behind the scenes to all the legislators and the people in charge of making these decisions. They assured us today that they are aware of that. One of our fears was, well, are they going to get a stack of form letters this high from Republic, because you know they're getting paid $100 to write a letter, and then, you know, we've only got 150. That's a little unfair. We're not millionaires. We don't go around paying people to write opinions. How can we possibly compete with that? And their answer was, don't worry. We have the ability to tell. We're aware of somebody 300 miles away making an opinion. We're aware of form letters, and basically no. I mean, they're looking for community input. It's important to point out, and something that EPA pointed out to us, You guys are aware that Administrator Pruitt cleaned up a site recently, right? Ordered to clean up in Texas, San Jacinto. In that process, he made one of the PRPs there really angry. It was Waste Management. They tried taking him to federal court, and in that process, he was able to, through a judge, enforce them by subpoena to put forth documents that showed how much they paid the opposition, how much they paid for Facebook ads, how much they paid, that's
They did against me,
Yeah,
I
they
wanted
did.
to see the numbers.
And he said, if they push us, we will do that here.
Good.
So that's key, because just like the senator's saying, she will tell you, this is real.
Yes.
There's real opposition.
And
they
can
stop.
I say one thing?
Yes.
So everything that happened last year around, when I made my statement, the money behind that was for public services. They paid for that. Yes, indeed, I did something that I should not have done, but they used that as an opportunity to take away my voice. They paid lobbyists and they paid consultants to get me out of office. I'm glad I went through that because I found out who my friends are, but I also know where public services paid for that and the lobbyists paid for that, and I am going to help you prove it.
And I think it's important to point out that these two gentlemen in front have had their fair share of being on the receiving end, and they're not alone is what I'm saying. This happens in other communities. This administrator, Scott Pruitt, though, Albert Kelly told us so much on the phone, we will air their dirty laundry in federal court.
Good.
And today, that is one of the things that we got out. I believe it was you that asked the question, what happens if Republic sues? And their response was, sure, they can. But we can also do a unilateral decision, which would mean they would go in front of a judge and would force Republic to do what they've been, the work at the site. And then he said, and we're confident, he said, we have the science and we're confident that we can beat this in a courtroom. But then he also said, he said, we can go in and do the work and then sue them. So it sounds very promising to us, like, they really do mean this. This administrator wants this work to start. Some people are probably not happy that this wasn't full excavation. We tried very hard not to put any opinions. You guys can have your own. But I will tell you, the door is open with them. They made that very clear to negotiate further on more of a cleanup. So basically they said, there is time through public comment, through working with the CAG and the tech committee to meet with engineers behind the scenes, talk about how we came to this, and discuss, options of making this even more protective and going further. That is a heck of a lot more than we've ever gotten from this EPA. I think you guys know that. So what I'm saying is, while this is a small victory for us, because they did say this waste needs to be removed. They admitted that this was a risk to this community, that it is a risk to our groundwater. That's out, that's done. We're all validated. They admit that. Now, what we're discussing is how much. Can we get those protective levels in place? Where's it going to go? Can we talk relocation of residents? Do you want to talk about your conversation about relocation? Oh, you got one.
So relocation was brought up at the table, and of course, we think that's the most important thing. We want the people to be put first and out of harm's way if they choose to want to leave. I did have a conversation with Albert Kelly after the meeting, and he approached me and said that he would like for us to send him more details on what this relocation exactly looks like. This is open, this is not off the table, they are going to talk about it, and we are going to push, and they are very well aware of that. And so is the 4 congressionals that were sitting there, the reps that were there, know that we are going to push for this relocation, and that is a goal of ours, and it will be met. So as far as relocation, it is not off the table, and we are still pushing. Today is day one of a new fight, okay? You have to understand that. This is not over. This is far from being over. We have a lot more work to do. So this is where we need, this public comment period is going to be huge. You have to do it. You just have to do it. You don't have to, like Dawn said, you don't have to write a book. Just a few sentences of what you would like to see. Tanya.
Karen, I can tell you too, in discussion after the meeting today with Mark Dietrich with St. Louis County Office of Emergency Management, our plan is to come up with a cooperative letter that talks about relocation, voluntary, from the standpoint of emergency management. If something happens while they're doing their work, we're not going to be able to protect the people in that area.
That's
So,
huge.
Linda, I think that phone call is going to be made today from the Office of Emergency Management.
Come on.
That is huge. This is the type of stuff right here that we need to have. You know, we have the backing from our school district, our fire department, SSM Health, St. Louis County. They're there. And now it's their turn to make their public comments. And we need to flood those comments.
Yeah, our position is if people feel that they're unsafe being that close to that site while the work is being performed, they should have the option. It should be up to them whether they stay there and expose themselves to it. And our stance as emergency service providers are, we feel that their health is going to be endangered as close as they are to that site. So that is what's
That's
going to be
great.
in that letter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Tanya?
During this 45 days, will there be a meeting with the EPA for people if they have questions regarding this?
There will be a public, EPA will hold a public hearing meeting.
It is their meeting,
It's their meeting,
not the CAG, not ours.
March 6th.
Now at that meeting, is this working?
No.
Is it on?
Yeah.
I thought I had it turned on.
Yes.
Press the right button here for the right amount of
Not
time.
mine.
Yeah, I think the battery might be shot.
We share.
Now at that meeting, EPA is not going to present and they will not respond to comments. It's similar to our listening session that we had. They want to hear what the community has to say. However, we have asked them if they will have an interactive meeting with the CAG Tech Committee. And they are looking at the legalities of that, because everything changes once this announcement is out. Stenographers have to be present whenever EPA talks to the community. There's a lot of things that change. I'm hoping that they will find a way, and they're committed to, if it's at all legal, that they will set up a meeting with the CAG Tech folks and their engineers to go through the details, and then the CAG will hold a public meeting and answer your questions as best as we can once we're educated through that process. Short of that, we're still trying to understand exactly what EPA's role is. The other part of it is we still have the task grant with Terry Brugowski, and Terry is contracted to assist us in interpreting the documents and presenting to the community.
This is a very formal, so now that we have a proposed remedy, then we have a public comment period, then we get to a record of a decision, which is the final, he signs off, we're okay to go. So there is, all of this is very legal. It's going to seem so much more formal than you guys are used to, but there's a reason for that. Like you said, every comment that you make is going to be recorded by EPA just so that they have it on the record to use as part of the formal comment.
The CAG will be formal. We won't be formal.
The proposal as it stands now, talk about removing the waste, or do they plan to excavate and store it on site?
Right now it's to remove it, but they made it clear with an asterisk behind it that The discussion of leaving it on site is still being had, but right now, as of where it stands today, it's to remove it and ship it off.
That is one of the things that they're hoping that we will comment on at the March 6th meeting.
Yes.
They want to hear comments from the community about that. But all the proposals that they looked at and the pricing and the decision that they made were all based on off-site storage. But they do want to hear comments about on-site storage, and I'm not sure why. Again, this just happened this morning, and there's a lot of, why do they care? Why do they even want? Why would they even consider it at this point? So we need to understand that, but they did say that that's one of the issues that they're looking for community feedback on.
And that's why this is important. You guys, from now on, you have to stay close, monitor the page, monitor the CAG website, monitor the state reps pages. They'll get information, the fire department. There'll be different places you can go for information, but you're going to have to stay really close on this because of that, because this is where there's parts of this being said that we don't fully understand, and as a community, that we don't tolerate that well.
Byron?
As a community, I would encourage us all to think about these things. If the government was to decide a uranium mill tailings site to store these wastes anywhere in the country now, those wastes would be isolated from people and isolated from water. This site was never a good site to store any kind of waste, much less radioactive waste. It leaks, and there's a fire there. It's in a floodplain, it's near a population center. It's not an acceptable site for storing the waste.
That was actually a follow-up question that I had about that. Because I think one of the things that needed to be said was when they were talking about removing off-site or leaving it there, they said they expect Republic Services to come back with a proposal to leave it on site. So the question was, is if they scrape 16 feet of waste and they get to that level that is in the record of decision proposal, do they then just bring the stuff over, scrape down 16 feet and dump it there? And the answer to that, and I don't think it was very technically, in very technical terms speaking, but it was no, that they would require them to engineer a disposal facility on that site that meets the federal standard for containing that. So that was definitely one of my fears, was are they going to leave it in a state that can get into the groundwater? Especially with the OU3 decision, and we have to keep in mind that that deals specifically with groundwater, but it's completely separate from what they're doing with this decision.
Absolutely, and that opens the door. OU3, remember we have now another Superfund site, OU3, underneath the Superfund site, because it's contaminated. And by the way, they admitted it today. Our groundwater is a, no pun intended, hot mess.
It's a mess.
It's a mess at the site. And so one of the things they talked about is the ability for us to negotiate these levels and how deep. A lot of that, and more characterization of the site, a lot of that is going to also happen through OU3 because the source of OU3 is the soil. And so for them, additional characterization and soil testing is the logical step, to figure out, make sure that, for lack of a better word, they pick the jug of milk up before they start cleaning up the spill.
And there was one technical, thank you Debbie for getting the mic on. There was one technical question that they answered that surprised me a little bit. Their decision is based upon there always being leachate being pumped out of that site. In other words, right now there's negative pressure being created in the middle of that landfill, so the groundwater that infiltrates in is being sucked out with the leachate, trying to stop it from getting into the surrounding area. And if those pumps weren't there, then more of this material would be in contact with the groundwater. So that's one of those areas that we really want to understand. And what I asked them for was, what are the guarantees, the bonds, all the legal, technical talk, what are the guarantees that that pumping facility will be in operation for not just 10 or 20 years, but at least 100 or maybe 1,000 years. remedies are supposed to be designed for a 1,000-year duration. So they committed to providing that documentation to the community on what those bonds and guarantees are, that mechanical mechanism will remain funded for the long run. I'm anxious to see that, and hope you guys will get to see it.
Just a little bit of a suggestion, maybe some advice. Yeah, when everybody is submitting their comments, it is also okay to submit questions, because they have assured us when they are finalizing their decision, part of that will be answering our questions. One of the first things, because of the amount of time I've spent with the DNR looking at average groundwater levels, has, if they are going to leave anything on site, exactly how does that compare to our groundwater levels? Not just on the static level, they talked a lot about static levels, but our groundwater levels do change when the river rises for more than 3 days, or when we have extended period of rainfalls. So when you guys are submitting your comments, also ask questions, because they will provide those answers. And if they don't, we'll be following up with that, because your questions will also be part of the record. I do encourage everybody living in this community to press the issue in your comments about relocation. They need to know how clear our determination for that is. All right? So that's really the top two, as well as on-site versus off-site storage. If you're comfortable with them building an engineered containment site to where the material isn't shipped out, let them know that. If you want this material removed from our community for good, tell them that. All right? Very clear, very simple language. Tell them what you want and ask the questions that are still unanswered.
And for those of you who dive into the documentation, when you see the term static about the groundwater level, that is the assumption that those pumps are running. I would have thought static meant kind of the natural background. Static means the pumps are there and functioning. So that's one of the issues that Mark and I were interrogating them on this morning. And thank you again.
Yeah.
Lots of questions out there, don't
I'm going to go over here. I think Debbie?
What's the difference? I realize that our landfill has a fire, but over by the airport, I go by every day, and there's a big mound of all that radioactive stuff that's been there for years. And they've got their little scoop, and they scoop it up and put it in rail cars, and it blows, and they're supposed to have the little water trucks. They bring the water trucks out, and
The hose chuck.
and then they scoop it up, and as the wind blows, they put it in the rail car and put this little cap on it. That's part of the same thing. Why aren't they doing something like that?
That is what happens when there are not enough eyes on something. I know senators cringing back there.
Are you talking about Banshee, right off of Banshee, that pile of dirt?
Yes.
Okay, so that pile has changed over the course of time.
Oh, yeah.
So they did have 2 or 3 years ago, they still had some remaining waste from back in the day. However, the huge mound that you see now is more recent. And I will tell you it's more recent as of about 6 months.
Yeah.
And I don't know the reasoning where it came from, but it's not from that place. It's new dirt.
The cleanup of the parks and the fields.
Is that what that is?
They have got places marked off that they're digging now, and they're just digging little spots, and they'll put a little flag up, and then they'll dig a spot, and then they'll put another little stick up, and then they'll dig
It's
that
across
spot.
the street from the pile.
Yeah, it's across the street, because where the wind's blowing.
That is what happens, and that is why you are here tonight. That is what happens when a community does not come together and does not watchdog. There is no such thing, any elected official in this room will tell you, there is no such thing as government oversight. People, we are the oversight, okay? We are the ones, they're in Washington, they're in trailers, Foos Rep is, we're the ones on the ground that go past this site. The whole dust blowing, the stuff that the hose that Chuck was talking about watering, these are the reasons why at least at this site, Coldwater Creek is a mess. I don't even know that we need to go any further than that. And yes, with this kind of stuff, I question the cleanup that's going on over there, or the recontamination with piles blowing in the wind. That's how it's got in the creek, and so many people got sick in the first
Why
place.
can't they do something like that here?
They can, but we're not gonna let it blow in the wind. That's the difference, because,
rails were right on site.
that's right.
They've been there for how many years? 8 years? How
Well,
many years?
and we're- And we're suggesting strongly to them that they use negative pressure buildings.
To do it under.
That you all are gonna be on top of this. You're gonna be on top of it, you're gonna be watching them, you're gonna be getting updates. They stressed today that they want to continue to have open, good communications throughout the entire construction, they call it the construction phase, and the design phase of this remedy. So stay engaged. We've been engaged, we've been successful, we got a lot of wins. Listen, I'm going to read you my t-shirt for a second, because I'm not kidding. West Lake Volunteer, we want to read it?
We just beat 2 multi-billion-dollar companies. And all we get to go is put our feet, and the government, and all we get to do is put our feet up for 3 hours and drink cheap beer.
Stay engaged, stay engaged.
And I will say too, you know, with that, I wish there were people that live there that could report that to FUSRAP. Somebody in the room probably needs to. But I'm confident all I need to do is call Senator Shoup, Senator Chappelle Nadal, Rep Mark, Rep Hill, and be like, there's stuff blowing. And you guys are going to be like, oh no, on the phone. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's or Matt LaVanchi. All I got to do is call Matt and be like, Matt, or Jim Usry, it looks like there's stuff blowing up there. Can you drive by? They're going to drive by and check. They're going to have people they can call. So, I mean, this is, we are not taking our eyes off of this site.
Amy?
The thing with the pipeline and the leachate, we all know that it free flows into the Bissell lines right there at Charlotte. Okay, and you just said that there's a good possibility that groundwater is getting in through the leachate. So we need to think about all those communities that are in the line once it comes out of the pipe. And maybe the pipe's supposed to be secure, but all those communities, and they're all North City, must have been affected.
Isn't it St. Louis as well?
Is Channing in the room?
Yeah.
Channing's in the room. So we now have a Wash U engineering student. And so what we were talking about doing, because that leachate does go through a treatment plant up there, and then it's treated once, then it goes through the pipe to Bissell and is treated again. We'd like to see what it looks like before it goes into the treatment plant and after. And we have had some of that raw data, and it is, look, it's even hard for us. It's hard to read, but with Channing involved, Channing can help interpret some of that data so that we could finally, yeah, we've got some good people looking at this. Yeah.
Remember that the Bissell gates are wide open in a lot of flooding. So that stuff doesn't get that extra check, and it goes right to the Mississippi River. Make sure you're checking how many times that has
It's
happened.
important because we do have multiple things at this site to watch, and that's one of them. Sometimes we forget about that.
Right.
And then we get reminded, hey, wait, we have other communities that are getting some of our awful stuff.
I'm going to go to Megan, back in the back.
I just wanted to know if we know who's getting our comments yet.
Tuesday.
We'll go on Tuesday.
Yeah, and I do want to correct what I said earlier. They will answer your questions, but they'll answer them, you submit them in writing, and they will answer them on the record after the meetings.
I'm going to go to Tanya, and then I'm going to get this guy right back here.
Back to my original question, I know you said there's a meeting for like March, whatever. Is there going to be anything maybe in February to help the community understand what the proposed decision is so that we have a better educated comment?
We the CAG are working.
We're sitting there for a month not knowing what to say.
We the CAG are working on a co-sponsored meeting with the moms to do that, and it'll probably be at the Machinist Hall. Again, we're hoping that we can have the technical meeting with their staff. Remember, I talked about all that legal stuff. We're waiting for word on that. I expect that they'll get back to us quickly on it. And if they say, yes, we can do that, then we will schedule a large community meeting after that. If they say no, then we'll schedule a large community meeting soon anyway.
Does this proposed decision include all the areas that haven't been tested yet?
So through OU3, yes. So now that there is a proposed decision and once there is a ROD, the testing will continue to be discussed through Harvey, continue to be done throughout the site with OU3. And then what happens is that ROD will be applied, does that make sense, with what they find in those areas. So right now they have a map, and we don't have it, we're hoping to get it but Tuesday, but they have a map of the areas this applies to. As they find more, which I say they are probably going to find more through testing, they will apply the ROD, and then those areas will be extended, and then that will be covered under the same cleanup.
What does ROD mean?
Sorry, record of decision.
Right back here.
Did they get into the aspect of containing the fire when they're removing it? Is there supposed to be this out of control underground fire? Has there been any stance on what they're going to do about that?
We are not going to get a firewall. That is not going to happen. Boy, you said that how many years ago? We are not going to get a firewall. And so what they're doing is the cooling loops that they put in where the fire is in the neck. But the answer is they're watching the fire closely. That's the answer. That the fire is being babysat.
This removal that they're proposing, yeah, the removal that they're proposing, the removal that they're proposing at this time does not go near the fire. Doesn't go anywhere near where
So they're not
the
going to
fire
test
is.
that?
Well, we're having a meeting with them Tuesday. Remember, Albert Kelly came in town and said, we want to make you guys happy. We'll do some testing of the North Quarry for you. We want to talk about it. So we had that first meeting through the CAG Tech committee, and the moms were there, everyone was there. And we gave them our wish list. They went off to research it, and now we're having a follow-up meeting. What's interesting about this follow-up meeting is it's with the Corps of Engineers this time. So we're hoping they're coming back with a proposal and not, gee, we can't do things. So we'll know Tuesday what I believe they're going to do something, but we don't know until Tuesday. But we are scheduled, that meeting is officially on the books, and they'll be in town. Watch the page for the results.
I'm confused about what the 30% is versus 10%. And
She's confused about the 30%, 70%, so we're going to talk about that.
Okay, so how many of you have, I'm sure through our page and through some of the research, has anybody looked at other sites across the nation? Just kind of glanced them over. Okay, so then you're familiar, even at St. Louis Airport, that while we say full removal, really, they rarely get all of it. What they end up doing is saying full removal, and then they move out to the side and they say, except for soils that cannot be accessed. And I think, Sue, you guys went downtown to Malincrot on that one, didn't you? Because they do this at all the sites. What they'll do is, they'll say, okay, we're gonna get all of it. They'll say, but see this little area right here? We're not gonna get it, we'll deem it inaccessible. And then the public has a chance to comment, and usually they go ahead. So what I'm saying is Coldwater Creek, even though it's covered under full removal, is not fully removed. And so looking at our sites, even under full removal, they would still be leaving things behind at our sites. And I know that's hard to hear because in our hearts we want it all to be gone, but there's what you can do on earth and there's what you can do in heaven. So down to background, they won't clean that far down. They'll clean down the federal levels, but at all these sites they end up finding little places. They'll say, we can't quite get that, that's under something, or that's, they come up with a reason. So I just want you to understand that going forward. Now talking about the percents, under the partial removal, it's 24%, right, Donna? 27%. So what it is our partial removal is removing 27% of the radioactive waste that's there. But it's capturing, in the waste that it's removing, 70% of the overall radiation at the site. Does that make any sense to you? They're getting the areas that are the hottest. The discussion that I had this afternoon with EPA, because I know Richard Callow's been throwing this out at the media. The discussion I had with them is that really the excavation plus is more like a hot spot and partial. So what they're doing is, as they're digging down 16 feet, if they get to an area that's below there that's really hot, that's the discussion that we as a community are going to have with them. Hey, what constitutes a hot spot? We want you to keep going, that sort of thing.
Did we want to ask them what's the base level, or what year? Like sometimes they'll say, starting in year 2005, we go down 16 feet.
Right.
Has anyone given you a base?
No, and that is one of the questions that we've all talked about, that we're going to send in and ask them. That was one of the first things that we talked about. Where do you start and then go down 16 feet?
But a lot of it.
Absolutely.
And do they backfill once they take material out? And there's a lot of.
The thing we have to keep in mind too is that
Under the trucks that are buried at 50 feet.
our biggest threat is wind-blown radiation, right? Everybody agrees that's the problem. So if we're taking 16 feet and the cap that is proposed, for all intents and purposes, that specific threat of wind-blown radiation is no more at this site. That is the big thing to keep in mind with that 27%, 70% idea. The idea is that we're cutting the threat down for the
By 70%.
Water.
or more,
Or more.
because they're taking the top 16 feet.
So that is the thing to keep in mind. You know, it's not as though we don't want them to remove. Our stance is remove everything you think you can get. And we are still having that conversation. Mark will tell you, Matt will tell you, the door is not slammed shut on that conversation. This should be looked at as a starting point. But as Donna will tell you, y'all got to get really involved right now. This is going to depend on you and your comments and showing up for things. Even if you don't have a comment, show up anyway, because your bottom of the seat matters.
Carolyn, would it help to point out findings of something that's a hot spot about 100 feet down that's really, really hot, and
Yes.
it might be inaccessible, and it won't be windblown, but it is over our aquifer and over our drinking water.
Yes.
and
Right,
it's
and I
all
think that's where
flows
they're going to
towards-
address that in OU3.
And-
Yes.
and-
Specifically.
But not in OU3. I mean, these are hot spots that their own reports have addressed. I only found like 3 of them, but they're way deep.
Well, but because they're so deep and they're within the groundwater, that what he's talking about is through OU3, they may be deemed accessible.
Okay.
So, and that's the OU3. Do you guys remember Brad Van from EPA?
Yeah.
The OU3, some people thought, is that a gift or a curse, splitting the groundwater up? Right now, it feels a bit today like a gift, because it gives us a different way to get in there and get more testing, because as they stated today, and they were clear on this, OU3 is the entire site, including the area that's burning. So keep in mind. we are-
Including all the toxic chemicals, it's not just the
Right.
radiation.
So they have more access to testing throughout the site soils using OU3 because it covers the entire site.
Yeah, it's not really much of a question, it's kind of touching on what you just said, Harvey. I agree the radiation is a big portion of it, but the chemicals coming out of there, especially, and I apologize because I've always said, you know, I put the focus on us in Spanish Village, but damn it, we're right there on top of it.
Yeah.
And we have no dilution of that, it's hitting us, it's not safe, and use their word, it's not suitable for us to live there, it will not be. And as Kevin and myself were one of the original members of the CAG, I don't know if Harvey was there, but Paul, I think his last name was Roscoe. I can't think. He made a statement, and that's what set me off very quickly in this. I don't know where he got his numbers from, but he said, leaving that material in the West Lake, one person will die from that. If we move it, 3 people will die. To me, that just set off a thing right there, that stuff is dangerous. And after that, that's when things started going. But this was in the very beginning. We didn't have much of a movement. But he made that statement, and that tells me, you know, that it was very dangerous from the get-go, and we do it, and that's what set us. And I'm personally tired of putting my family in the ground. Her brother just died of cancer. His was more like the Coldwater Creek, where he played as a kid. I had a cousin who died just this week. 2 girls in my fall softball team. One was very young. Everybody knows Kirsty. She died of a brain tumor. Now another girl, she lived a little bit longer, had 2 kids, and she died of a brain tumor. And I am sick and tired of putting family and friends in the ground. And that meeting that we stood up and said about the people, we need to put faces on this. We're not just numbers. We're people, and we're tired of having our family and friends die from this, and we're sick of it. Get us the hell out. I'm sorry for using that
Mark and Senator Maria and Senator Shube and Representative Hill, you know, it is very hard to advocate for a buyout without that kind of passion coming from a face. When you have, you know, we can do what we can, and we will do, and we will be there. No, ends of the earth, Chuck. I will go to the ends of the earth to get you guys out of there. I will be at every hearing, but we've got to get more residents there because they cannot do this on their own. They can walk door to door, and they have, and talk to people and get the stories, but that right there, that's powerful. That's powerful, and that moves people.
But you're not, in Fayetteville, you're not going to get, because of the lawsuits that were previous, people
I know.
are afraid to speak up.
There was somebody, though, I don't know if you saw the news tonight, but somebody, and I don't even recognize who she was. Somebody, they knocked on her door and asked about her opinion of this decision, and she was kind of like, well, you know, and yeah, it's kind of good news, but we really need to relocate these people. This is not even a person who's here that we even hear from. This is, and you know, so there are more people like you out there, and we talk to them all the time. And the representatives are very aware, as you just heard from testimony from Senator Maria. They know that there's been litigation and that this PRP is a bully and that they're waiting for you. They watch it on Facebook. They're waiting for you to pop up and say one thing and boom, there they are. They're aware of that. And as a community, we're just going to have to figure out a way around it. Sure. I mean, maybe can a relative speak on behalf of a family member? Something like that.
Yeah, that happened several times last year. After I mailed that letter out to the Spanish Village neighborhood, there are people coming up to me saying, hey, my family lives there. They're scared to death to talk to you because of Republic's pressure and the gag order that they signed when they got that early settlement. But they're still scared to death over what's going on and, you know, are pushing me to continue the drive. So it's okay. If you know somebody afraid to talk, find somebody to be their voice and get in touch with them.
That's what I would recommend. Find a cousin, anybody that's willing.
Also encourage anybody that knows somebody that was part of a settlement, call your attorney and ask what you can and can't say, because you'll be surprised.
That's right. That's right. There are things that they can say.
I can talk.
Check with your attorneys. There are things they can't say.
Yes.
I want to point out, all of us raised the issue of the air pollution. We certainly talked about relocation as well. But the air pollution issue came up, and I talked to the folks afterwards as well. This is one of those areas where the federal government and the state government both have some kind of responsibility, and it's really not clear who's taking the lead and who's responsible for what, when, where. It's really a gray issue, unfortunately. It goes along with the grayness of a cruddy year. We have a couple of people, citizen researchers, who have wrapped their mind around a big portion of this. Donna, thank you, in particular. Part of what I've been asked to do, actually, by Kelly, was to start giving the Superfund folks some of the air data and some of the information that we have in a summary form, because he wants to take it to the Superfund lawyers and talk about what the limit is in the jurisdiction right now. Remember, the state has jurisdiction over Bridgeton Landfill, which is where the fire is. The whole thing's a Superfund site. It's gray as to just how much the federal government can intervene in that particular issue. So what I would like to ask anyone here, or ask of you folks, anyone here who has any kind of a background in chemistry or air stuff, or is interested in being part of a committee on the CAG to dive into this and start working and supplying this information to the EPA folks, let's call them on it, let's keep reminding them that this is, the entire site's a Superfund site, and they need to step up and do something and find a way to legally help us out here, because the state is meandering. That's the best, I don't know what's, I'm not gonna say they're not doing their job, but the state is not stepping up as much as we'd like to see. So please see me afterwards if you'd like to be on that committee. I think that's critical to getting a relocation done. Quite honestly, I think that may be one of the keys. We've talked about the amount of sulfur coming out of that site and whether or not it can ever meet the EPA standards or not, the national standards. These are the kinds of things that they're asking us to now give them some information on, so that they can see if there's some other way they can help us. I don't, all I can do is thank God, and I don't know why the sudden change, but we have their attention now, so let's take the opportunity and let's ask them for everything we need and cross our fingers and see what they'll deliver.
I've got one more request. I don't think I need a mic. All right. Something I've asked before, but it's really important right now. Everybody in the room probably has a friend that lives somewhere else in Missouri, somewhere outside of this immediate area. You have a relative living anywhere else in the state of Missouri. Talk to them, get their help to be your voice here, because the more reps anywhere in the state of Missouri that hears from their constituents about this issue is going to be willing to step up and help support it. We've got a small little group right here, but the more voices out there that you can contact, the easier path it's going to be for us to actually do something. Any questions? Because
what about the effort to get the site turned over to the Corps of Engineers?
my personal feelings on that, because we have a record of decision today that we can start working on, is that that could lead to a delay.
The other thing is, once there is a record of decision, the Corps cannot do anything but that record of decision.
Which is,
So
the
we're
answer,
But
kind
they
of,
can participate in systems.
that's right. The
Yes.
answer to that is
Absolutely.
we still believe this is 100% the federal government's responsibility. It is still our opinion, this always should have been FUSRAP, and we did everything we could to get it to FUSRAP, and I think that with the help of bipartisan support last year and the introduction of legislation this year, what happened is I think that helped elevate the status of the site into this administration. It highlighted the failures of the previous administration, which were righteous. You had Democrats that were saying, okay, EPA Gina McCarthy is failing these people. The problem that we face with that, which is what we faced last time, is frankly, back to his shirt, billion-dollar corporations, as hard as they are on these people, they will probably tell you horror stories of what lobbyists look like in Jeff City. So you can only imagine what they look like in DC. I mean, I just remember being down there that day, walking door to door with that sheet and then chasing us. I mean, they would walk out, we would walk in. The moment we'd walk out, 2 more would come in after us. We couldn't compete. And it's like that in DC. We would have to hire a team of lobbyists. We'd have to have one of you in DC every single day. We'd probably need 5 of you in DC every day going in the Braeburn. I mean, what it would take to compete with that and the money on that level, we could start that up again, but I don't know that we would win that. And the problem is, with a decision this close, like Rep. Mathieson said, it's our understanding through all the legal resources, including FUSRAP, that once a decision is made, they can only implement the already made decision. They cannot come back in and redo it. So I'm saying we could pursue FUSRAP, but we're not going to get a different decision.
Without declaring a FUSRAP site, can't the EPA have them come in as like
Yes.
consultants?
Yes.
Yes.
And they are.
They're doing it.
And they are. They're doing it right now.
Tuesday was formally with FUSRAP.
yeah, and actually the meeting Tuesday is actually with Corps of Engineers people, I'm not sure if they're FUSRAP folks or not, but Corps of Engineers is involved.
Yes, they are.
They just, I would feel much better if they were put in charge of the construction and the contractors. But at this time, that would be the major difference between who owns the site, and I just don't, they're not gonna end up owning the site.
What is the meeting Tuesday? What meeting Tuesday?
Tuesday is a tech committee meeting with folks from the EPA as a follow-up to our request for additional testing of the North Quarry. So they're going to, we gave them our wish list, and Tuesday they're going to hopefully tell us what is practical, doable, and what they're committed to. I'm hoping.
Is that open to the public?
No, it's a committee. It's the tech committee of the CAG. Ed is on it. Ed's actually the chair.
Yeah, Ed Smith leads that committee.
If you're interested, contact Ed. Seriously, we'd love to have you on the committee.
You want my violin too? The world's worst violin is this is a real nice offer.
If they give us a hard time, will you play it?
Do you guys have any comments? This isn't just for questions. If you guys just want to get up and talk, give us your reaction. We wanted to tell you what happened, but we want to hear from you too. We want you guys to feel free to get up and make comments and talk about how you're feeling.
I just was wondering, how'd they come up with 16 feet? Since this stuff's been sitting here for decades, how did they come up with 16 feet?
We're wondering the same thing, and yeah, that's going to be discussed. And like I said, when pushed really hard on that number, they didn't sound like that was too fluid.
Better than 2 inches.
Yes.
Yeah, they indicated that there may be some negotiating in that number, and that's why we really want to sit down with your engineering folks and figure it out.
Linda?
Yes. I'm getting the feeling that you're pretty confident that the negotiations would be 70% or more, that they wouldn't go backwards?
Yeah.
I mean, am I reading that
They
right?
pretty much said they won't go backwards. That's pretty much what they said. Now again, this is what they say.
But the PRPs are gonna make their argument why they should go back.
Right.
That's it. The same comment period holds true for them as it does for us.
Don't mistake what we're saying for, we believe 100% what they're saying. I think you know us well enough to know that we really don't believe anybody. I mean, going forward, there's going to be a lot of proving that they're going to have to do. This is not just take everybody's word for it. And in fact, I don't remember who commented, I think it might have been you, and Kel said, I would expect nothing more. So he knows too that there's going to be a good back and forth. That's why we're saying we need you guys. It cannot just be us having this back and forth.
Senator?
The one thing that I wanted to say, and this is all due to Kay, if you look at Kay, her old records, which I've gone through, a lot of records, one thing that you will note that as has been said, that this is the critical moment where you fight like hell.
Yep.
In this time period, right now, you act like the end of the world is a month from now. So you have to act crazy and off the chain and do whatever you have to do to communicate that 16 feet is not enough. So the history is, if you look at the SLAPs, for example, there was contamination as far down as 36 feet, 19 feet, 8 feet, and there was a huge deliberation for a very long time about how much they were going to clean up. But it was only because of the committees and the subcommittees and people like Kay who were dotting the I's and crossing the T's who forced the EPA to actually clean up more than what they were wanting to do. So when we talk about the 16 feet, you gotta fight like hell. You have to fight like hell, like it's the end of the world. For many of you, it already has been hell. But you got to do that, and you only have a certain amount of time to do it, but it can be done.
The senator points up she's right, because if you watch what happened at the airport, yeah, it almost got very bad. They were able to get more protective. And if you watch Rocky Flats, where we just were, in fact, get on my Facebook page. Alicia put a little message up, congratulations, but she put a whole thing. warning us, don't take your eyes off. She said, identical to what she said. She said, do not let what happened at Rocky Flats happen to you, and it will if you blink.
And also, a reminder, there was a 2008 record of decision, which was a cap only. And again, due to Kay's efforts and a lot of other folks, during this comment period and some other work they did, that cap did not get installed. The whole thing had to be reinvestigated. So this is a time period when they do listen, and hopefully we can expand this decision. I'm not trying to get them to not do this, but I would like to see them take a lot more than what they're planning.
In the back here.
When did they decide that a mile to 3 miles was the buyout approximate range? When did they decide that wasn't the case anymore?
I've never decided anything. The
It
mile,
was in the newspaper.
The mileage came.
That was somebody that
The
developed
mileage,
that.
yeah,
Because, I don't know if you remember, but 2013, Republic Services offered temporary relocation for those living within 2 miles.
No, this is some after the hotel relocation.
this was after that?
Yes.
Then that was just somebody that said something false in the newspaper. We have not heard, I mean, there may be people outside of a 1 mile radius in a trailer park.
Yeah, me,
You're talking,
I'm 0.8 miles from the smoldering.
so you're right within the mile, so
Yeah.
you're within it. Are we talking about the legislation maybe?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like he's talking
Yeah.
about.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll try to be really brief on this. So that bill was filed last year, and this year, I don't know what Mark's version is. I think it's a little bit different. The first time I filed it, it was for 3 miles because contamination does go way beyond a mile. However, that fiscal note was beyond what our state's even spending is, which was $24 billion, so that wasn't going to happen. So it was between the moms and the community who just really felt that those who were within a mile needed to have that buyout. And so, again, as was stated earlier, you had a lot of lobbyists who were there who were trying to kill that legislation, but we're all still concerned about those families that are in close proximity and are exposed to any of that pollution that may be in the air. But I don't think that's going to go anywhere this year. But the big win, again, even though it's not 100% of what we have, the biggest win was experienced today because you can't shut the door anymore. And again, if you look historically at this, when the door is opened, it will not be closed, cannot be closed for decades, and that's what happened because of Kay's work before, is the door was opened, and they're still cleaning up from what they did back in the 80s and the 90s. They're still cleaning up that stuff because the door was opened.
That's right, and she makes a great point, the door's open.
I just want to take 1 second here while we've been talking about Kay so much. Kay, we would like for you to come up.
Today is all you.
Did anyone bring a violin? I can play Happy Birthday. I've been playing the violin for 80 years, and I can still play Happy Birthday.
I'll take it seriously. This is like
like a birthday.
Music.
Anybody else?
Okay, I think you had a question, comment?
Yeah, just a comment, the removal of the waste versus encapsulating it. And we think that they will listen to us and respect that we want the waste removed versus being.
I think, first of all, it's important to point out that they have listened to us. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation had they closed the door.
The recommendation right now is to remove.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not to leave it.
And they said that there's not a large financial advantage to storing it on site. So, again, it's not clear why they're even still talking
There's
about
so
it.
many risks with an on-site versus
Right.
off-site.
I think that the senator though pointed out, you know, like the door, she's right, the door's open right now. They have listened this far, we need to push. You can't, I know I'm saying this and it sounds corny, don't blink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to fight like
Push
hell.
that. Do not blink, do not flinch. You can't, even right now. Get on the page, get more people on the page. If you are on the page, do you have a newsletter? Do any of the legislators have newsletters?
Can I talk about that?
Yes.
So when you got up, I was just about ready to get up and say, okay, I'll keep that. So,
Thank you. First of all, you guys are amazing. Thanks for all that you've done to make this happen. And, you know, I keep wanting to chime in with my organization ideas, but look what you've organized. And this is, you know, a last minute, not a huge meeting for what I've seen you have in the past. But many of us have newsletters, some of us have podcasts, we have all kinds of ways that we communicate with our constituents throughout the state. So this goes right to what you're saying, Mark. So if you make it easy for everyone and maybe send us a little blurb that we can read or put into our newsletter to request that we ask our constituents. So my newsletter goes to 5,000 people. If we got, you know, 10% of them to send in a letter to give their perspective and to let them know that whether they're located in St. Louis or across the state in Kansas City, there is, or even, you know, I'd love to reach out to some people in Illinois, and I don't know if that's part of what we do, but this has an impact on everyone, not just those of you who live in the backyard and those of us who live nearby in a neighborhood. So we need to do that, and we need to do that quickly so that within the 45-day period we know when the hearings are, but we also know that we can submit written testimony. One of the questions that I want to ask, if I could, is do you think that the number of letters that you get on a certain topic matter, or do you think that, in other words, if you get letters from everyone that say, we want to go deeper than 16 feet, or if you get letters from everyone that says, we think there needs to be a buyout, is the quantity important? Tell me what the factors are that determine what the end decisions will make. Or if they just get letters, are they really just looking for information about people's ideas about what needs to be done for today and for the future?
I think the one thing they keep saying over and over again is it's not a popularity contest. Yeah, and it's not quantity. So I think what it is, while I do think numbers matter, I think that more pointed, if more pointed people requesting a buyout that maybe aren't living in the area, but maybe your relatives, or maybe you're just like me, and I was up there shopping at Target, and I can't imagine these poor people. Yeah, they're gonna categorize them as what they're gonna do, and like Harvey said, if there's a question, they'll answer it, but they will lump all the questions together. So yeah, as long as we cover the bases.
But as far as something like the depth,
yes,
I think that is a regional issue, and that is something that anyone in this area, in the zip code around here, that weighs in matters. And I think quantity there matters.
Yeah, I would
People
agree with that.
showing them that the broader community is paying attention to that issue makes a big difference.
Well, and I think that somebody brought up the point earlier that the depth of 16 feet depends on where you start from, right? So that's another way of approaching that question. But the reason I asked you about quantity, you know, I think everybody here in this room is obviously willing to, you've already done so many things to get them to this point. I know you're willing to write a letter or to have somebody that you know write a letter. My question to you is, and you've been such great organizers, I hate to act like I have an idea that's new, but I almost think you need to do a little bit of dividing and conquering and saying, we need you 25 people to write a letter that includes 16 feet is not enough. We need you 10 people to write a letter that says, I know people who live there, you need to let them move so that their families are safe. If you can help us do it in a way that you think is most impactful, I think everybody here will do their part. And I think that, you know, Maria has obviously taken the lead in the Senate in a big way, and I think Mark has done the same in the House. I think we have colleagues, I know Tracy McCreary, representative on my way over, said, tell them I'm sorry I can't be there, let me know what I can do. People want to be helpful and reach out to their communities and have them support this community, because it's, frankly, for selfish reasons, it's going to impact all of us as this problem continues, and heaven help us.
Don't you think like what we do when we campaign, we have these letter writing parties?
I think, oh my gosh, that's a fantastic idea.
Tupperware parties, letter
Okay, we're sharing ideas.
All right,
What's
so,
that look like?
okay, so I will tell you.
Come here.
No, I just came from the gym. I look a mess.
It's okay, no one cares.
Oh, good for working out.
Last year they made me gain 40 pounds, so I'm trying to lose those 40 pounds. Jill, what am I saying?
You're talking about letter writing.
Oh, okay. Okay, so one of the things that we do when we campaign, all of us campaign, it doesn't matter if we're Democrat or Republican, we have these parties, these phone call parties. So the last one that I did personally was with Bruce Franks. And we are in a room in South City. It's a big empty room with a bunch of tables, and we're just using our cell phones, calling people. But for the purposes of this, is we call all of our friends, all of our volunteers, and we still have tables and chairs, and we're writing, and we have ideas on the walls, these human-sized Post-its. You know, here's an issue that I care about, here's an issue that I care about. And you just bring 40 people if you can, and on Sundays or Saturdays or whatever's good for you, have these letter writing parties. So it's just, don't y'all, I don't know if y'all do that as Republicans, but that's what we do.
We use email.
You're grassroots, because we try to win some of these things. But anyway, it doesn't matter, it's if whatever works. But, you know, I know that there are a lot of people who are committed to this. And there are a lot of people who don't know about this problem. If you don't see it, it doesn't exist. For the people who live by the landfill, you do smell it. But if you don't live by the landfill, you don't smell it. Therefore, you don't know it. And that's one of the things that I've been working on, is to educate people who live in the cancer clusters that are in St. Louis region, who are wondering why they're getting sick, and trying to identify, trying to show them and guide them how to get help. But there are a lot of people who have been suffering who have no clue why they're suffering, and they don't live here. But what happens here at the landfill impacts the entire region. When I gave my presentations in the city of St. Louis, people would say, oh, that's out in Bridgeton. And then I had to say, oh, is there a great wall in the jet stream? Is there a great wall? Because when you have alpha and beta particulates and gamma rays in the air, there's no wall that stops someone from getting sick. The water that the people in the city of St. Louis drink, a lot of it comes from either North City, or if you live in St. Charles, you're sharing the water that we have in North County. So everybody should be concerned. Nobody deserves to get ill. Nobody deserves to go through this hell. It does not matter if you're black or white, rich or poor, Democrat or Republican. It absolutely doesn't matter. So that's why we have to fight like, you guys fight like hell. I mean, I'm serious, you gotta fight like hell, like you've got nothing else to lose. I'm not kidding you. It's the only way to get things done. It's what Kay did back in the day. You've got to fight like hell.
And thank you, everybody.
You know, I was gonna just be I was just gonna watch today. I don't live in the community, but I'm affected by the community. I represent God's country, Western St. Charles County. But my wife grew up on Coldwater Creek.
Yeah.
So, sorry. This
Tell
is
your
what it was
story.
like on the
your
House
story.
floor the last day of session last year. But everybody that lived in that house got cancer. One died with several cancers. And so what I wanted to come here tonight and why I decided to speak up is because the area right now, the state right now, thinks this is a local issue. And when they say call your family members, your friends throughout the state of Missouri, it's for a good reason, because it has to be a state issue. You know, we make policies in Jefferson City for the entire state. And when we tried to accomplish this last year, we ran into trouble, 14 votes shy, because the lobby only had to say, this is a local issue. We've got this under control. And see, they didn't have anybody to put a face to the problem. So, I mean, I commend you all. This is incredible. It was so emotional that, you know, I didn't even hear the news this morning. I got up in Jefferson City, we gaveled in, voted on a few things, gaveled out, driving home, and I saw something on Facebook, and I had to pull over. I started crying. I'm such a big baby. And, you know, only because you all have worked so hard. So now is not the time to stop.
I would have spoken before you if I knew I was going to follow it. Anyway, thank you for all of your work and for obviously understanding the problem. So I wanted to come back and say about this organization of this. So we're busy, we're legislators, and I know you're busy too, and I know so many of you work. But if any of you have time, I will open up my home. We have a lot of room. We have a downstairs basement with 2 huge tables where we can have those postcard writing parties. Thank you, Senator, for that great idea, or those letter writing parties. So I am willing to do that and open my home and provide some laptops to use, bring your own. I'm in Creve Coeur. I will provide snacks and food for people. We have, you know, I will do what I need to do to open the space, but I need somebody to help me pull it together. So if you're the person that has time and wants to be involved in that way, please come and talk to me, and if anybody else is able to do that. We've got a time limit. We've got to get going, so we can, you know, we can stand here and talk about this tonight, but this has to start happening tomorrow. So please come and let me know if you're able to help.
We'll find out Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
We'll know Tuesday, but let's get the houses open and the papers ready and the snacks bought and start to get people
Our board room in the
involved.
Pattonville Fire District is always open. There's always somebody there, so we can, if you can't.
So let's find some places to organize, and let's do this.
Offered that out to Dawn.
Can we get some people that would help volunteer? I can help, we're a little spread thin, but can we get some volunteers after this to meet with the senator, meet with the representatives?
We have tables and chairs for what, Jim? 43 people?
Okay.
I don't have that much.
We'll have more than one party.
Yeah.
Are you providing food?
You know what? They
Hot dogs.
Competition, that sounds like.
The fire department is always good for hot dogs.
You can do a chili and hot dogs.
That's your house.
What do you got for me?
Okay, so this is great news.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, Anna.
For writing for letters, what is the age requirement?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, that's perfect.
If your 2-year-old can write, get her on it.
Crayon drawings have a really big impact.
Where's she? Kara, there she is.
Our
would like to get together, we're talking about, I'm adding them, they don't know it. We want to go door to door, we want to pass out papers. Here we are, look at all of us, if we all do it together, make us a form letter, everybody bring their own, hand it to the residents here, have them sign it, we can turn it in that way. A lot of people who live here, you know how it is, 3% of the people help do stuff. But if we go to them, we can get their signature, most of them are gonna be willing to do it. The 5 of us are gonna do it, we need you guys to, all of you, whoever can do it. Pick a day, many days, it doesn't have to be one day.
We have to
Let's get out there and make it happen.
So
See
you
us
guys
afterward.
so I'm hearing that you guys are taking that on, you're gonna organize that and,
Sure, we'll
Okay.
do that. All right.
Are you gonna go into Spanish Village?
Yes.
I'd like to make a suggestion. I don't know what law firms are involved, but I'm sure there's people in the room that do. Maybe it would be really good if you guys were to contact the law firms and ask them what the people who took settlements are allowed to write and have a specific.
They will tell you.
Yeah, they'll tell you.
Let me tell you, okay, I'm part of the
They
thing.
can't tell you
I
what
called
they can't
Dan
talk
Finney.
about, but they'll tell you what they can talk about.
I called Dan Finney. We can speak about whatever we want to speak about. If it's anything to do with our suit that we had, that's been resolved. We're not going to discuss that. But does it still stink? Yes. Do our eyes still burn? Yes. Is it horrible living there? Yes. We can say whatever we want. It is still going on. We are not prohibited from saying anything we want to say, except that that situation has been resolved, and we will not discuss it.
So nothing about like what the settlement looked like and stuff like that?
What settlement?
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about, what's going on in my life now.
Yep, okay. Yep.
So we can't discuss it. And anybody that was part of that, you're welcome to call Finney. I told him, if I get an attorney, somebody on my doorstep, he will be my first phone call, and he will be free, because I'm doing what he said.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it may be useful if you can actually get a letter from Finney saying, it's okay for you guys to sign this letter and send it in.
And if anybody has the ability or the money to donate, they have flyers made and hand out, we sure appreciate that because, yeah.
on that note, we can help with some of the printing. However, I do want to point out that in order for Just Moms to sustain what we are doing, we're going to need help.
So,
With a new microphone? So yes, we have the donate button up on both of our Facebook pages now, on our website. You can donate here, you can ask other people to donate. Every little bit helps. Tanya.
Okay, last question. After this 45-day comment period, how long do they have after that to make a record of decision or determine? Is it open-ended?
Didn't you say something about 9 months today?
Well, they said that they want to have the record of decision signed by the end of the fiscal year for the government, which is either
And that's why I think.
end of September.
Doesn't mean that's how long.
But, yeah, the only thing I can tell you is that if they get a lot of questions that need answering, they said that they will have multiple meetings. I don't know what else to tell you.
Right.
Stay tuned, we're still learning.
Rachel.
Okay, so as long as we're talking about making this a local issue, making it a regional issue, I think we should also think about making it a national issue, and we have this perfect opportunity of this movie coming out on February 12th. So that's like a week away. So, do y'all know people like in Tennessee and Arkansas and California and stuff, like, they can have parties at their house and watch this movie with a group of 10 people, and then they can all write postcards or letters to the EPA, right? So what if one of us made a postcard and had a website where people could sign up and say, I'm having this house party in this place? Like, we could even make like a little map and like have all these pinpoints around the country where people are sending in comments to the EPA. Like, wouldn't that be cool?
Are you volunteer to do Because we love everybody's ideas.
I don't have any like web
Oh, well, don't look at us.
But yeah, like,
I will say,
you said that, maybe come talk to me.
I will say, if someone gets that organized, one of the big issues that I've been concerned about for a long time is that the food swap program nationwide is underfunded. There's no reason on earth why it should take so long to clean up Coldwater Creek. And in the meantime, new people are being exposed every day. This is really wrong. Because there's no one out there pushing nationwide saying, increase their budget, get it done.
Donna.
Along those lines, I was reading about, it was the conceptual plan for the containment zone in Rolling Springs. And so they had a big timeline, just everything that happened out there, and it's been a long time, and I was really curious, so I read through this. In a 3-month period, FUSRAC removed and hauled away 44 buildings. Buildings.
Yeah.
I mean, so, yeah.
They can move fast when
Yes,
they
they
want to.
Yes, they
If you wonder why I don't sleep well, look at Donna Clocky, because she sends the best documents.
Is there a question over here? Yes.
So on Tuesday, will there be a place, like our website or your guys' page, where we can see all the people we're supposed to contact and like the addresses of letters and all that?
Yes. We will have that information up.
Email like you sent out today?
Yes, it will be in our newsletter.
You need to go search where to find it?
We will have the information in our newsletter. It'll be on both of our Facebook pages, on our website, on the CAG website. I think EPA will have that information up as well.
I think they
Well, that's
will.
what we're waiting for.
Yeah, we're waiting for that, but I think they will too.
Yeah, we'll push it out
Yeah.
everywhere we can.
Talking about Facebook, if you were here the last meeting, and I know a lot of you weren't, join up for the newsletter. Do that because, as all the reps will tell you, the lobbyists, the money being spent behind the scenes, they will go after our page. And they will. So we have West Lake Landfill Facebook page. The CAG has a Facebook page. We have Just Moms STL Facebook. Right now, that is our main method of communicating with you, besides our newsletters. If something happens to that page, we have no way of getting in contact with you. Do not rely on the Facebook page. If somebody reports it, I mean, any number of things can happen that might not completely remove the page, but might put it in Facebook.
It might take us down for 2 days.
Yeah, Facebook purgatory for a week.
Facebook jail.
Yeah, Facebook jail.
Yeah, Facebook jail. And, you know, as the representatives here from Jeff City will tell you, they'll try it because they're nasty. And it's our fear that if that happens, we don't have a way to get in contact with you. So if you want to, is it Kristen, do you have the information for how to sign up for the newsletter?
It's on our website. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere, yeah.
It's everywhere.
Sign up for that newsletter because that's going to be, whenever we have emergency meetings like this, that's probably the quickest way that we can get you.
Dawn, what you mentioned at the CAG meeting the other night, we had a members-only CAG meeting, Dawn gave great advice. For those of you that are very active, that participated in interchanges of email and posting regularly, change your passwords frequently. Because right now, there are people that are going to be hired to look into trying to hack us. So let's be very careful, just rotate your passwords on a more regular basis.
I highly, highly recommend that.
Sue.
The other thing is, even today, I think it was maybe a KMOX site or something, the trolls were out there. They were trying to say, it's not safe to take it away from the site. So when we say that kind of thing, we need to answer it, we need to be factual. That, you know, don't just say they're crazy, they're trolls or whatever. Answer them, ask them where they got their information.
Oh, it's not just safe to take it out, but it's even worse to leave it in.
Right. And I think
Nobody says that is exactly right. One that you can say it, 3 that it when it's out, but it's still there.
Right. So we just
And
need to tell
that's
them.
what my opinion was. I read it today. At first I actually saw it on the news, then I checked my mail. And I thought, okay, so they gave you a decision. I'm not pointing fingers, you got something, yes.
Yeah.
But from my point of view, okay, you thought that what you had was bad, now you're gonna know what bad is. Because if they do not remove people, what's gonna happen?
Right.
Yes.
But this is the thing, it will be bad. There's no way to say that it's not gonna be bad. It just needs to be placed in a way
Yeah,
that
and-
shows that leaving in is even worse.
Yeah, and keep in mind, the statistics that are quoted for leaving in are annual statistics. The statistics they quote for removal is a one-time
Exactly.
action. So over time,
Yes,
leaving
so
it in
when
will affect many
arguing,
more
it's
people.
not saying that it's not safe, it is
Yeah,
not safe.
and I haven't looked at the statistics on this
Right.
proposal,
Keep
but.
in mind too, we won't know until Tuesday what the details of that plan is. And they have already said that they're looking at putting up a structure to contain, so while they're digging, they're not allowing the stuff to just be airborne.
And loading and unloading.
Exactly, so they're gonna, the plan, is my understanding, is that it'll all be undercover. So they have a negative pressure dome, basically, that they will put over the area. The trucks will go in, they'll get loaded inside there, and then they will come out. And they'll be deconned as they come out, so they're not driving the stuff down the road.
Trucks or maybe rail?
Correct.
Yeah.
But Don, as Don points out, one of the areas that they talk about taking it to is in Michigan. They're, and it's a truck route. There's not a rail route to that location. So we won't know until Tuesday. There's a lot of speculation that happens between now and Tuesday. We won't really know what's up until Tuesday.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, say the things, we know that true, it's true, it's dangerous, yes.
Yes.
But it has to be put in a perspective that it's even worse to leave it this way.
Well, especially if the fire hits it.
Absolutely.
What happens if the fire hits it?
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah, right. Chuck?
Just a technical question. On that implementation for 5 years, how, I know it's very basic and early, so how did they come up with 5 years with the fire going to burn probably for 10 more years? Will the implementation at that point, or basically, or really get started, will that be an ending point? Can you just give a very basic?
We won't know until Tuesday,
Nothing on that?
a lot depends on the legal, whether Republic balks, whether they do a unilateral decision and they go after them, they just do the work. We won't know that, but that is, we're hoping that we get a more clear plan of what the timeline looks like, how they do it, like Matt said, we're up in the air right now with that.
Let me just say one thing, Chuck.
Let me reiterate. The question was more a basic, is it going to take 5 years to start implementing this, or will that kind of be like a?
No, that's what I was going to address.
Kind of my question.
They said once everything's signed, assuming there's no lawsuits, it's 1 year to do all the design work and contracting. And then it's not clear to me if it's 4 or 5 years after that of construction work.
I think it's been stated that it will be done in 5 years.
It'll be done in 5 years, so that means it's 1 year of design and contracting and 4 years of construction.
That's
And-
what's
and-
largest.
And again, we need to remain vigilant. Also during that 1 year, we're going to ask for as much communication and input as we possibly can have, and they have encouraged us to do that.
Right here.
Hi, my name is Mark Thomas, kind of a long-time listener, first-time caller when it comes to this issue. Just got back to the area recently, and what I was excited with that kind of a cocktail of emotions when I heard earlier this week there's going to be an announcement on this. And what it struck me as first when I read some of the articles today and some of the statements was that you guys have all successfully fought your way to the negotiating table, but the way that you negotiate is showing up online, showing up in letters, and going door to door, which I think is a fantastic idea. But also what they've managed to say is that, a 70% removal, that seems like a high number. I passed a lot of classes with a 70% on test. But they also are admitting that they're leaving 30% in. So when it comes to prioritizing what to write about, they've admitted now that 30% is going to be let in. Now obviously we have made good faith points that they will work to decrease that percentage. But they have admitted that 30% are going to stay in. And what that means is they've acknowledged your problem. They've shown you their hand. They've showed you that they know that 30% is left in. And that means that prioritizing relocation should be amongst the top things that are being done.
Absolutely.
Because 70% more safe off of a 100% disaster that has affected all of you by no fault of your own is unacceptable. And 30% left is unacceptable. And if they don't wed this solution to relocation, they're failing all of you.
Yep, I like that.
I remember it. I think I blacked out a bit when I was talking.
No, but
It's recorded.
That's perfect, that's a perfect way to look at it, and that's kind of how we looked at it today, you know. We knew that they had the option to go higher. We were disappointed they didn't go higher. That's not a secret. But it's not, and we were happy with, because like you said, once they acknowledged that 70% was dangerous and had to go, well, that means all of it's dangerous.
Yes, exactly.
And so for us, we looked at each other and we're like, it's not all, but we're like, nope, they just gave us a card, which they said 70% of this is dangerous. What about, so if you have a loved one that died from this site, which one killed them? Was it the 70% or the 30%?
Exactly.
And that's what he's saying. So again, they did give us something today. We have something to fight off. We have a direction. I love you. Keep going.
Tanya?
Did they say why they stopped at 70? Why did they go for full? Did they say why? Is it a money thing?
No.
Is it-
No, they didn't say why. That's why we're asking for a meeting where we can actually, that's why we're asking for a meeting where we can actually
All the options that were on
talk.
the table, they considered all things, including finance. He said that today.
Yeah.
So yes.
So money's an issue.
Yes.
They did the one that they thought was the negotiation, but the problem is this is where, like the senators are saying, the public comment period is going to show them what it is the community, where we weigh on that middle ground. We have the ability to push that middle ground up. I think we can do it. I'm just going to be honest with you, and I know my glass is always half full. But okay.
There are a lot of people in the room that have, first off, that have worked incredibly hard and gone and put everything of themselves into this cause, and I think that we all agree that we deserve a response that does the same. Could you guys maybe enumerate, I mean, there's a lot of experts in the room, so 4 top priorities that you would like people to mention in Jill's snack party and all the other letter writing party. Look forward to that concert, by the way.
Relocation at the top.
Relocation.
And then the second is getting that 70% pushed up, going up to the 30%. The other one is the storage. You gotta talk about the storage on site.
Just so everybody knows, the mayor of Bridgeton went on record to say that he is not in support of storage in Bridgeton.
Yeah, he did.
But I think the number 2 issue when Dawn's saying get more, the way to position that is about the groundwater. It is surprising to us how many politicians have stepped up and said that they are concerned about the groundwater. That is a hot button. So saying that we want to get more than the 70% out, that does not carry as much weight as saying that you want the source material that's contaminating the groundwater removed and removed now.
That's why the site's not susceptible in the first place, the groundwater. That's why they have to, since they're gonna dig it up, put it on a train car, and get it out of here, like all the other ways that they do it all the time. It's got nothing to do with somebody in Warren County, nothing to do with that at all. They do it every day when they're in operation, the food's around the site, they can do it here.
So that would be the top 2, right? Relocation and get the material out of the groundwater, which we all know means remove more of it. But that would be that's the way to say it, is you're concerned about the groundwater, you want that material out now. You do not want to wait for another 5 or 10 year study of the groundwater. You want that material, that source material removed now. And what would be number 3? Off-site? Okay, honestly, I think off-site doesn't have a big chance, but by all means, they asked us, they said they'd like community input. Let's do it.
Can you point us to the data on the groundwater? I mean, I could just say, I don't want it in the groundwater. EPA has said nothing has traveled off-site, although...
They haven't tested off-site.
What?
They haven't tested the groundwater off-site. Let's put that on the table first. But they have acknowledged and tested extensively on-site, and it has moved around and contaminated many, many areas on-site where the rim is not above it.
And it's in the stormwater, but, I mean, can we just say, I don't want it in the groundwater, but we don't have anything to prove that it is in the
We
groundwater?
do. I can get you that data. They have, and actually it's very easy to read. What we can provide with you is all the highlighted areas on site where they're finding radiation above the drinking water standards, which are their federal levels, and that's very easy to do. But what we can also do is on top of that, we can get you another diagram that shows where the radioactive wastes are located within that map of the site. And what that does is you can actually see there's radioactive waste and you can see these hot wells. And that gives you, you know, if you're looking to talk to somebody or if you're looking, you know, all you gotta do is quote a couple wells that are pretty hot and say, look. And then his point is too, some of those wells are butt up against the edge of the site and they haven't gone over. So I mean, you can say, look, we've got a line of wells here on the other side of radioactive waste, and on the other side of those wells is the river. And you haven't gone beyond, but these are all hot. So there's some talking points we can give you.
Their remedy is supposed to be a 1,000-year threshold horizon. That's what their remedy legally is supposed to be looking at, is protecting the community for 1,000 years. The assumption that there will be groundwater pumps in that locale working and properly maintained for 1,000 years is questionable at best.
You need a nuclear plant to be able to do that.
So, and they're not arguing about the groundwater being contaminated. That's established fact.
You came flat out and said that today.
Right? Okay, then that's different information than what I've read so far.
Yes.
From the EPA.
Yeah, we can get together and we'll show you stuff. Sure. Love to.
Any more questions, comments, or other? Colleen?
And this is a comment, and that is, if we can't relocate people, there is hope that the award from the Attorney General settlement could possibly be put forward for moving people out.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Why?
She's asking if the Attorney General's litigation settlement would move people out, or could.
Because
They've said no.
They've said no, and right now, the Attorney General's office, and right now, the Attorney General is doing this, and Albert Kelly is doing this, and they're telling each other two separate things, is what we learned today, and it will be addressed.
But you have to remember that we're estimating, what, $12 to $15 million or so to buy out, if everyone in Spanish Village wanted a voluntary buyout, and the trailer park, etc. The problem is, to us, that sounds like a small amount of money. To Republic Services, it sets a precedent across the country for buyouts for nuisance odors and things like that. They have been very strong in talking with folks that they are not going to set a precedent at this site that can be used at other sites. So I wouldn't expect any settlement from the Attorney General to include that. So we got to be looking.
So when is the money to be used?
Well, that's a real good question. I don't have an answer for that.
Honest to goodness, it's going to be, in our discussions with the Attorney General's office, at the end of the day, it's not going to end up being a whole lot for this community. You're probably talking 12, 13 million, and they would have to have like a community, they would hire somebody to come in to distribute that money, but it couldn't go to personal use. It couldn't go to individual people.
It's for the betterment of the community.
That's right, and you'd have to appeal to this person and say, I'm with the fire department and I'd like this much money for the betterment of the community so we can do X, Y, Z. Do you understand? And so we were told that that could not be used to help, and now, you know, with the buyout. Now, one thing that was discussed was a clinic. But a lot of people have said, why would I go to a clinic in Bridgeton when that's where I'm being poisoned? You know, so
there's a lot of up in the air with what's going to happen with that settlement money.
And there's already a nice new community center. There's, you know, BMAC, independent of whether you think it's contaminated or not. The facilities in Bridgeton, I don't live here, but from looking the outside in, I'm not sure what you would do with that money in terms of enhancing.
Biohazard shower station.
As far
I don't know if everyone heard that. He said biohazard shower stations.
To get out there, something happens. I mean, there's plenty of things.
It makes me so angry that we don't have people fighting for that.
As far as that looks to us, it's not going into a community, it's not going into a general fund. It is going to go into a
It's
fund.
not going to the city of Bridgeton.
No.
Right.
That's,
It is going into a fund that's going to, like Matt said,
How about
betterment of the
healthcare
community.
monitoring?
that's
Off into the
definitely on the
future.
table.
It's on
That's
the
things that
table,
we're
it's been
on the
talked
table.
about. I would tell you this, as much as we focused on the radioactive waste here, don't forget about that fire.
Do not ever forget about that.
And don't forget that you do have litigation right now happening. You know, always remember, I make it a habit once a week. I know people joke, because Karen and I are on first name basis with some of these people. Listen, we bother the stink out of them. Eventually, I mean, if you leave enough messages and you talk their secretary's arm off, then we'll give you their personal cell phone. If not, because they think you're never gonna call them, and then you call them, but you don't abuse it terribly. But, I mean, seriously, you guys can have that. You just have to be a pain and just get that secretary on the phone. The reps have secretaries, and just talk to them. They wanna go off to lunch and be like, well, and just talk to them about what you're going through. Sooner or later, they recognize you by name when you call, and sometimes they'll give you their cell phone numbers. You see, so this is what we need you guys to do.
Okay, then it's another question. Is it all the comments should be written, or is it at a call?
Oh, written.
Written.
In this case, it has to be either written or at one of the public meetings, like the March 9th meeting.
It's to be on the federal record.
March 6th meeting, I'm sorry, put it on your calendar, March 6th. And they're gonna have stenographers and all that stuff, so phone calls don't work.
Okay, no, just a question. What?
Yeah.
Todd,
For the people that don't know, can we talk about the meeting that's coming up?
yes. Most of you probably already know, but the HBO documentary, Atomic Homefront, is going to premiere February 12th. There is a watch party set up here that we will show the film. You should probably RSVP. We have how many so far, Kristen?
Oh, it's, I haven't even looked. Oh, it's probably between going and interested, probably close to 350, 400 people.
Those are people that have stated that they're interested. They won't. Yeah, just the going. What's the going, Kristen? 100?
100 something.
Okay.
Are you gonna have seating, because I might not come.
We will do what we can for seating. And also, never forget that we also have Safe Side of the Fence and the First Secret City out there. Get here early if you want to come to the watch party.
Don't forget
Get
about
your
the
seat.
occupancy
We
for
will be
this
here.
church, 'cause
We'll take questions
no, the
afterwards or
Banshee doesn't
comments
know. He
or
says you're gonna have to come.
whatever.
The other thing is, if anyone is a member of an organization that would like to arrange a screening, it looks like they're going to give us permission to do more screenings now that, once the 12th is passed. So if you're a member of a church group or a civic group and you'd like to arrange a screening, please see me for now, I guess.
And obviously, if you have
We'll get
HBO,
there.
it's going to show more than just on February 12th. It has its, it's on demand or whatever. We don't have HBO, so. And we've already seen the film 4,000 times, so.
No, and I'll say that too. We have these other films. If we're not in here when we're watching the film,
She is not allowed to be
No,
watching the film
I'm not
anymore.
allowed to watch any of the films anymore.
She is just not allowed.
They all make me very angry. They're all very good. They're all very real, and I just start screaming at the screen. It's not good.
Debbie?
Are you gonna have another meeting after Tuesday, like you had tonight, like an emergency meeting or anything?
We'll
To
have
discuss what and,
We are scheduled to have,
Wednesday?
we are scheduled to have a community meeting on Thursday of that week. We do not want to meeting you guys out.
Or should we have a Thursday meeting to say, hey, this definitely is what they said, and let's make sure we started having the dates and the places for our writing parties?
That's why we're here tonight, so that we can get these ideas and get these offers of people, let's do this, let's do that. We've got the film coming up on February 12th. We're supposed to have a community meeting on February 16th. We're talking about a meeting, a joint meeting with the CAG at some point. We've got the EPA meeting coming up on March 6th. That's a lot. And we'll do what we can do. We'll do what we can do.
So the meeting on the 16th is Ron's meeting, right? That's Friday.
Whatever it is.
Can
15th.
the CAG be at that meeting?
15th.
And that way we're not over.
We're trying to do joint meetings so that we're not.
She's asking if the CAG can
Yeah.
do that joint meeting.
Yeah, we can talk about doing that. She wants to know if we can do a joint meeting with that so that we're not doing
We will keep
separate.
you posted, definitely. I'm gonna say right now, if you want guaranteed information from us, sign up for the newsletter. Check your email. You don't have to go through all the Facebook stuff and look for things. It's gonna come right to you. That is probably going to be our first line of getting things out, is through the newsletter.
The other thing too about the meetings, it's not that we don't want to have meetings. We've been really great with being able to use the church. A lot of you in this room have been very involved in this issue, but. But the other, because public comments are so important and because we want to get as many people out as we can, we're worried that if we host too many of these meetings and people are confused, the numbers will dwindle, and then we really need those public comments, we're not going to have them. So that's one of the things that we're working on. A lot's going to depend on you guys. You have schedules. We don't want to wear you out. Everything that you need to know that happened today, you guys just learned from a multitude of people that were there. And, we will try and communicate that on Facebook. But as far as the timeline, Tuesday, what happens, the letter writing parties, we'll make announcements of that on Facebook. If you guys feel like you want to take on something, please feel free to post that on Facebook. Say, hey, I'm trying to get a group of people together and organize this, please.
What is the EPA meeting on March 6th? What is that?
The meeting on March 6th is sponsored by the EPA. It is an official, on-the-record, community input meeting where
What
they...
time and where?
Oh, they haven't announced it. I'm sure it'll be at the machinist hall, but they haven't announced the time yet. But we'll get that information out as soon as we have it. I would assume it'll be in the evening. It's kind of silly if they do it any other time of day.
So I'm going to make a recommendation, but I cannot volunteer to organize.
Okay.
Okay. Out in St. Charles, they've been very successful activist groups. Every Saturday morning, they'll pick a major intersection. They'll hold up signs, just reminding people about meetings. Wearing T-shirts about 3 hours of cheap beer and stuff like that. So it's very effective.
Okay.
Everybody's driving around on the weekends. You've got a good opportunity here the next 45
Or when
days.
church is let out too.
Yeah, every
They let you do that
every
out there.
weekend over the next 45 days, pick a different intersection, put 20 people out there, holding up signs, waving at everybody.
That's actually a really good idea. We got a lot of people to some of the EPA meetings earlier by doing that.
Just for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Lunch rush.
That's a good idea.
And we'll say Justin said we could do that.
Yes.
That's actually a really good idea.
And what's your police chief's name?
I don't work for them anymore.
I just wanted to suggest when you said that we may be able to get the movie, all of us should contact our friends and relatives that don't live here. If they can get the movie to show in their area, we're more likely to get some letters on that. So.
That's a really good idea.
Didn't the tail one time say, you project it onto your buildings and sometimes
Yes, he did.
Paul?
We're talking to Bill Gates. He hates us.
If there's nothing else, I don't want to keep you guys super late. It's 8:30, it's emotional, you guys have kids, you guys, our Jeff City folks need to go, I think you guys have to go back down, right? Are you guys done?
No, they're back.
Whew.
We can bother them in district now.
So, but we appreciate you guys coming tonight. I know it's been an emotional day. Who knows how we're gonna feel tomorrow?